Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit, and for those of you watching on YouTube, I'll just answer the obvious right now. Yes, I am recording out of a different location than my usual one. That is because I'm back home in Newport for the holidays, but we're still gonna have a great episode anyways. And yes, I know you all are gonna, come at me because I don't have any USC posters behind me like I normally do. I got a few USC things, but it's just not the same sort of setup as I have up at school. But that's not going to stop us from having a great episode. So let's get into everything going on. And let's start with some football news because there's been a lot going on. For any of you who are just checking social media, no doubt you see something new every day regarding transfer portal news, especially. So we'll get into some of the biggest losses of just some of the biggest changes and just losses that the Trojans have suffered. And this week, it was receiver Zachary Branch and also his brother Zion Branch. Both announced they would be entering the portal. It sounds like they will likely opt to stay together at their next school, but definitely a blow, especially for the younger Branch, Zachariah, with a lot of potential he had. Sure, he didn't quite live up to it the way we all hoped, but I think still he had a lot of potential, and I think it's definitely a blow, but I'm still confident that USC can figure it out and find a way to just rebuild around it without him, although definitely it's been tough seeing guys like him, Quentin Joyner, Deuce Robinson head into the portal and transfer elsewhere, but still a lot to definitely excited though for the bowl game, and we'll get into that later, of getting to see younger guys get their opportunities and could potentially turn into stars for next year. Just could turn out to be crucial pieces for the team next year. So it's really exciting to see all that. Other news is, I think we've talked about, Jake Jensen entered the portal. He is transferring to Montana. He has announced that has been announced. However, he is expected to remain on the sideline to back up Jade Mayava in the Vegas Bowl this week. So we'll get into that, but definitely helps with the depth that USC's got at least one more quarterback backing on the sideline behind Mayava, even if he's not really going to play. So I think that's definitely some good news there, at least for the time being, but wish Jake all the best. Can't say I'm surprised by it, but definitely good that USC will have at least one more QB behind Mayava, as I've said. But in terms of guys actually starting to come to USC has started to turn that corner and start to see some good news. Eli Sanders, pardon me, is a running back from New Mexico, is coming to USC. So I think that's definitely a big pickup. It's got 1 year, but I think it'll look a lot like what we've seen with Lincoln Riley, just getting those 1 year guys to kind of be the stars with Travis Dye, Marshawn Lloyd, Woody Marks, and now I think Sanders can absolutely fill that role in a similar way. So I really like how Riley's been able to recruit running backs, and I think hopefully I just hope to just see a bit more of a balanced attack and the run game utilized more, because I think that was just I think we just saw Woody Marks not get utilized enough, and I think that hurt the Trojans in some of those bigger games, not having a balanced attack. But hopefully I'd love to see Sanders get major touches, especially if he's coming in presumably at RB1. Then other news is defensive lineman Jamal Jarrett is transferring from Georgia to USC. So big pickup there on the defensive line that's been getting a little bit thin, but I'm really excited to see how that goes for how that pickup will fit into USC's defensive scheme. It just shows how USC has been able to recruit, and just how the defensive product has turned in the past few weeks, or in the past year, just with Danton Lynn, Eric Henderson, and Doug Belk. Matt Entz too, while he was still here, but he will, as we've discussed, he is now the head coach at Fresno State. Nothing has been announced on his replacement yet, but definitely just a testament to the defensive coach that Lincoln Riley has hired, and we'll get into that in a sec. But first, I want to give a shout to punter Eddie Czaplicki, who has continued to just stack up All-American accolades. On December 18th, so last week, he was named the Sporting News All-American First Team, and he was also named First Team All-American by The Athletic, making him the first USC's second ever punter named to the All-American First Team. That first punter was Tom Lone in 2003, and he's so far stacked up made 8 All-American teams in total, which is really impressive. So just shows how just great and crucial he was this year for this Trojan team, especially when the offense struggled at times, that you put Czaplicki back there on fourth down, he's kicking it deep and making offenses work for their yards. when he is on the field, when they get the ball. But on to some coaching change news. So obviously we talked about Entz in past weeks, but then last week, uh, former offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Josh Henson is off to Purdue to coach be the offensive coordinator and coordinator there. And so while he technically did hold the role of offensive coordinator at SC, it was still not exactly as fully limited because Lincoln Riley was still calling the plays. Whereas from what I've been reading on his move to join newly a new head coach Barry Odom's staff with the Boilermakers, is that he will be more involved in the play calling. And as for Lincoln Riley, assistant head coach for offense and tight ends coach Zach Hansen, who has experience coaching offensive lines, will take over. And I think this is a really good move, especially because we saw the progress the offensive line made. And I think even with new guys coming in, Hansen's experience can, I think, really help this offensive line just next year to be a lot more solid in protecting Jaden Mayava or Huson Longstreet or whoever winds up being USC's starting quarterback. So I think it's going to really be a good move for the offense that they moved Hansen there. So far, there's been no clarity as to who will be the offensive coordinator. Will Lincoln Riley continue to hold play calling duties? Will he pass it off to someone else? And no move has been made of who the new tight ends coach will be. So I'm definitely interested to see what Riley does with all this. I think he'll make the right decisions on this, but it's just going to be interesting to see. I mean, he used to also help coach the quarterbacks and he stepped back to take a more holistic approach. That's my thing I'm most curious about to see. Does he stop calling the offensive plays? Because I mean, he's a good offensive minded coach. Like, that's no secret. But I'm just wondering if he wants to take a more holistic approach like he did with the QBs. And I think you saw that pay off just with Luke Heward moving to the quarterback coach position. I think he helped a lot, and I think he'll continue to help Mayava get better. And I mean, he's a big reason why USC was able to land Huson Longstreet after Julian Lewis flipped. So I really think Heward just really established that connection with Longstreet and just made it so that way Huson wanted to come here once he saw the opportunity. So I really think that these moves are going to work out, and I actually have some confidence going into 2024. I think obviously schedule not being as brutal certainly helps, but obviously you see still go out and win games, but I think they're putting themselves in a very good position to do it. Obviously, I'll come back more to this once we have more information. Then in addition to just helping with all that, USC's got some good news. Offensive lineman Emmanuel Pregnon, who made significant progress this year and improved a ton, is going to return for one more year with USC, as will safety Kamari Ramsey, and linebacker Eric Gentry will also has been in pads and practicing. He'll be playing in the game. It doesn't count against his red shirt that he had to take due to getting a series of concussions. But I think, and he'll be back one more year. So I think really it's going to be just I think it's just those are three big moves for USC, just getting guys to stay Gentry, I think, wasn't going to be ready, but especially Ramsey and Pregnon. Those guys could have gone off to the NFL, and they're like, no, we're going to stay at least one. Well, Pregnon has one more year. Ramsey's got a few more years, but the fact they're staying one more year is huge for Lincoln Riley and just the team in general to just really help boost this team into year 2 of the Big Ten era and year 4 of the Lincoln Riley era. So I'm really excited just about that they're just getting some continuity in some crucial positions that were just key. Pregnon was obviously more consistent and got better throughout the year. And Ramsey was huge in helping turn the defense around, especially because he knows defensive coordinator Danton Lynn's scheme from their time at UCLA. They were there together for 1 year. So I really think these are both two huge developments for the Trojans, especially too, they'll be playing in the Vegas Bowl, and that's just going to help with more continuity, especially with, a lot of the younger guys playing. And we're going to get into that right now. So team flew out actually yesterday afternoon, saw it on social media. It was at the basketball game. We'll get into that later. But pretty much so, SRS distribution Las Vegas Bowl. USC at 6-6 will face Texas A&M, who's 8-4 at Allegiant Stadium this Friday at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. So two teams actually do have some things in common this year. They both beat LSU and lost to Notre Dame. So definitely kind of interesting to see that they've had a couple opponents in common. And Aggies are coached by Mike Elko, who was previously the head coach at Duke for 2 years. Really did a great job turning that program around. We're coming back to College Station, where he was previously the defensive coordinator for A&M under Jimbo Fisher, and then he assumed the head coaching role after impressing at Duke. After Fisher was let go last year for the buyout that more than tripled. Was it 76 million? I believe that more than tripled the previous record. I think it was Gus Malzahn at Auburn for 21 million. So really, I think good coach, helped turn it around, helped change the culture at A&M. I know so far I think they've only had 3 opt-outs, but really the real interesting story I find in this is going to be the quarterback story. Because Jade Mayava took over for Miller Moss, and Moss has since left USC. And for A&M, Marcel Reed took over for opening day starter Connor Wigman, who also has since transferred. Moss, as we've discussed, is going to Louisville, and Wigman will be going to Houston next year. So I think USC's trying to. So I think that's just definitely interesting to see these two guys who took over as at the QB spot late in the year have their chance to try to prove they belong and try to stake their claim. Although, as I've said, I'm holding off on really. I want to see what happens in spring ball with Longstreet and whoever else Riley gets in the portal at QB before I start saying who I think should be the starter, because I just don't. I want to just really see all of it because we don't know. I want to just see what the talent that USC has is this spring. And even the next year, I'm not opposed to keeping an open mind on all of it. But yeah, the other thing that's going to be big about this game is it's going to give a lot of young guys time to play. So I think Elijah Page, he obviously got better throughout the year. Running back, Brian Jackson, who's going to probably get prime opportunities to play with Woody Marks likely opting out, and Quentin Joyner now at Texas Tech. So I think there are just some big opportunities for a lot of young guys to really get some opportunities to play. And I think it's just going to be really interesting matchup. Really, I'm going to go. I just want to see kind of what this team looks like and kind of what pauses I can take into next year. And obviously hoping for, win and just getting us going into 2025 on the right foot. Obviously, it's going to be a tough game. Texas A&M is good. They had some tough losses this year. Probably some games they shouldn't have lost. They're right there to make the SEC championship until the final game when they lost to Texas. So a big Lone Star Showdown rivalry. But pretty much I think it's going to be a great test for USC. Just really kind of see where they are, what they need to improve, where guys can develop, and I think just really help this team get a good, positive outlook going into the 2025 season. So looking forward to that final game of the season and just my final game while I'm still in college as I graduate in the spring. So my final football game as a college student. So it's going to be a really, I think, good game, and just looking forward to seeing USC battle one more time and finishing the season on a positive note. Meanwhile, for women's volleyball, some more awards for both Mia Tuaniga and Allie Batenhorst. Tuaniga made the third AVCA third team, and Batenhorst was an honorable mention. So congrats to both of them. Obviously, as I've mentioned, they will play each other in their PVF debuts. So it's going to be a really definitely fun matchup, but definitely best luck to both of them in their preparations for the next chapter, for the start of their professional careers and getting to play each other. So like I said, if I can make that work, I definitely want to tune into that game. Meanwhile, some definitely tough blows to the team, though, were both middle blocker favorite Anyanwu and Jaden Livings have both transferred to SMU. That happened early last week. But pretty much right after like that Monday night, Tuesday morning. So after I was done recording, so I was able to report on it. So, and I mean, it seemed like they kind of were making their decision together, at least because they seem really close. They've known each other for a while. They're both from Texas. They played club volleyball together, so it seemed very planned together. And it's a blow to USC. And obviously, just with Batenhorst and Tuaniga gone, USC is going to need to see a lot of returners and freshmen step up going into year 6 of the Brad Keller era. Obviously, I mean, Tuaniga's gone. That's going to mean obviously, definitely going to be some interesting see what they do with the returners and the freshmen, especially a freshman class whose most eye-catching recruit is former USC and current Ole Miss head football coach Lane Kiffin's daughter, Presley Kiffin, is coming to USC next year. So I think that's definitely just an interesting, fascinating story that she's coming to USC, even with everything that happened with her dad. But still, I'm really excited to see what this recruiting class does as well as the returners. I think this team still has a lot of potential. We'll see what happens, see if USC gets anyone big out of the transfer portal, but I'm really excited to see next season. I think USC can definitely make a lot of progress. You saw a lot of players get better this year. Danya Famuina, Madison Peach. So I think there's still a lot of potential on this roster. I think Danny Thomas Nathan should be back, London Weejay. So I think there's still a lot of talent on this team. So it's just, can they make that next step and break into the second weekend of the NCAA tournament? That's what I'm really looking forward to just seeing out of this team. So I definitely, if I'm around next year, I definitely will still be coming to games. Obviously, I got to see how it all shakes out with, work and all that. But if I'm in the area, I will be at as many games as I can. So best of luck to them this offseason, and especially, obviously, it's a tough way to go out. USC did finish at 24th in the last AVCA coaches poll of the year. So definitely some building to do for next year going into year 6 under head coach Brad Keller. Meanwhile, for USC soccer, the coaching staff was named the North Region Staff of the Year. So big congrats to them. Obviously, well deserved for how incredible that season was. Just especially with all the travel, no true home stadium, having to play well away from campus, everywhere from BMO Stadium, which is basically in USC's backyard, to Carson, to Irvine, Great Park. So it was just really incredible to see this team just go on a run and just have the season they did despite all the challenges. So it was really well deserved for them. They finished number 5 in the final United Soccer Coaches poll that was released. And obviously, and then finally, big congrats to senior defender Brooklyn Courtnell, who has signed with the NSWL's NC Courage. So really excited to see her take the next step and make her professional debut. So excited for next season. Meanwhile, we'll move to some of the spring sports. They're starting to gear up. Some schedules have been dropping, so I'm going to get into those right now. Women's lacrosse dropped their schedule. So they will once again, due to construction at Rollinson Stadium, they are off campus for one more year. So they'll have 2 home games played at the LA Coliseum, which will be against Stanford and Johns Hopkins. The remaining 7 will be at Dignity Health Sports Park. They got their first Big Ten slate. And I think, obviously, like I said, the Stanford and Johns Hopkins seem at the most intriguing on the schedule. Probably partly because quality of the opponents. I mean, Johns Hopkins is D1 and in the Big Ten for lacrosse only. So that's definitely interesting. But then also they're at the Coliseum too, which is great. It's closer to campus. And then they also will play all the former Pac-12 LAC schools that are in it. So Stanford, Cal, ASU, Colorado, Oregon, who's in the Big Ten with them, and as well as for affiliate Pac-12 members last year, UC Davis and San Diego State. So I think definitely will be an interesting schedule along with all of the interesting matchups. Big Ten tournament will take place from April 23rd to 27th, which will be hosted by Maryland in College Park. So first game, and then obviously the first game will be against Stanford at 1 p.m. on February 8th at the Coliseum. So definitely excited to see lacrosse start back up. Congrats to Isabel Vitale for being ranked 33rd on the Inside Lacrosse Women's Top 50 Lacrosse Players of the 2025 season. So definitely a player to look out for there. Meanwhile, men's volleyball also had their schedule out, or at least the social media post was uploaded. I think I talked about they took it down. Not sure what the issue was, but it's back up. So schedule now is confirmed. Menlo and Vanguard have joined the MPSF, and USC will play Vanguard twice, but they won't play Menlo or continuing member Concordia University. They'll play all the other MPSF foes twice. So that'll be Pepperdine, Grand Canyon, Stanford, UCLA, and BYU. So that will be their slate there. They have 2 big tournaments this year. So they'll play the Big Ten Challenge in Columbus against Ohio State and Penn State, who are not part of the MPSF. Big Ten does not sponsor men's volleyball, so that leaves USC, UCLA, Ohio State, and Penn State to be in more regionalized leagues like the MPSF, at least for the Trojans and Bruins. And then also USC will play in the Outrigger Invitational in Honolulu, so they'll take on Penn State again, Ball State, and Hawaii. Then I think the games I'm most hyped for are going to be the home and home series against UCLA to close out the season, April 17th at UCLA, April 19th at USC. MPSF tournament will be this year hosted by Pepperdine in Malibu from April 23rd to April 26th. First game is in First game of the season is in the Galen Center Pavilion on January 9th at 7 p.m. against Damon. It appears to be closed to the public due to it looks like you can't buy tickets for it. I will see if I can confirm anything and get info to you either next week or as the season approaches. But the first home game that looks like you can buy tickets for that will be open to the public is on January 11th at 7 p.m. against Princeton in the main Galen Center. So that's kind of some of the spring sports coming down the pipe who have released their schedules. Obviously, I'll get more of those coming up as they are released for officially released for all the other sports because it's going to be obviously the spring's going to be really busy. I mean, that's kind of when most sports happen. So I'll just say it definitely can be tricky trying to keep up with everything when teams are sometimes playing at the same time. So obviously, I just want to get all that information out to all of you so you can keep up with everything, which is really why I started this podcast because I wanted to do that for y'all. But anyways, so women's basketball, it had a big win against number four UConn. USC was then number 7. They beat them 72-70 in Hartford for a marquee away victory on Saturday and the Trojans' first ever win over the Huskies. And I think a big boost in part was Kennedy Smith was back from injury, had 9-minute points in her return against UConn, and hopefully she'll see more minutes too. She may have been on a minutes restriction. They weren't able to play USC play-by-play radio voice Eli Kleinman was unable to confirm but suspected, which, by the way, I'd like to give a shout out to Eli. I listened to the game on the radio while I was driving home from Mammoth on Saturday. He did a great job painting the picture and just really describing the environment. So definitely, if you are either unable to make it to a USC game or can't watch it on TV, definitely try to fire up your USC Game Day app and listen to the games via the play-by-play broadcast. They're really good. Eli Kleinman's good, and on the men's side, Jordan Moore I think does an amazing job really describing the action too. He's been doing that for a while now, so really I've really enjoyed listening to his play-by-play whenever on the men's side, whenever I've been driving, and now they've added it to the women's side. I think it's just great that they have it to so that way fans can follow the action more, especially when you can't get to the game or be in front of a TV. So definitely a great option if making it or watching it is not an option for you. So just wanted to give a shout out to both of them real quick. But onto the women's basketball game against UConn. So Juju Watkins led with 25 points. Kiki Iria Fenn had 16. Trojans did kind of dominate early, had an 18-point lead at one point in the second half, but managed to blow it. Unfortunately, was, I think, the largest lead they've ever blown in history. But they're able to hold on, especially with just the Huskies. Paige Becker's projected number 1 pick in this year's WNBA draft. And also Sarah Strong each scoring 22 points. It was a sold-out crowd, super hostile environment, and even just listening to it on the radio and through Eli's descriptions, you could just tell it was hostile. So really tough environment. So credit to USC for getting the job done. So it was a really exciting game. I was really tense and nervous while driving, but glad they pulled it out. Obviously, a huge win for the team. They moved to 11-1. They're now on a 7-game win streak, and they have been moved from 7th to 4th place in this week's AP poll. So really excited to just see how they do, how they go on next week going into Big Ten play, especially because the first slot of Big Ten play is going to be tough. I think 3 of the next 4 games are against ranked Big Ten opponents as they get fully into Big Ten play. So up next for USC is against number 23 Michigan, who's 10-2 on the season. They are 12-29 on December 29th. That game will be at 7 p.m. on Big Ten Network at Galen Center. So I think it should be a really competitive game for USC's first ever home Big Ten game. And Michigan's been good. Their 2 losses are to South Carolina and Oklahoma, so 2 of the best teams in the country this year. So it's going to be a really competitive game. I'm really excited for USC really getting into Big Ten play, and I think it's going to be really exciting, but it's definitely going to be really tough, really difficult, and definitely going to be some really physical games coming up. this season for USC, but it's going to be really exciting to see how the Trojans do in their debut Big Ten season. Some other news that came out earlier today is assistant coach Chris Coaklanes will be leaving USC to take the head coaching job of the Dallas Wings and is reunited with general manager Kurt Miller, whom he worked for as an assistant coach and defensive coordinator with the Connecticut Sun and LA Sparks for Miller when he was the head coach at both those spots until 2023 when he joined USC at the start of the 2023 season. It's definitely tough for USC, but I don't blame Coaklanes at all. I'm excited for him to get an opportunity to be a head coach. It is tricky, though, just because of how the college basketball is happening during the winter. WNBA happens during the summer. You often see, especially with the head coach, if they're coming from, college to the pros, for example, they have to leave their team in the middle of the season, as Coaklanes will have to prepare for the to prepare to the Dallas Wings, the draft. He'll likely actually be getting to coach Paige Beckers. That's been getting talked about all morning since the move has happened. But it's an exciting move, but it's definitely tough. I mean, you saw it with the LA spot with Utah women's basketball when Lynn Roberts was hired as the new coach of the LA Sparks about a month ago. Just you saw that she had to leave Utah after just 4 games. So it is certainly tough, but I'm still excited for Coaklanes. And Lindsay Gottlieb obviously issued a statement today. This is what she said, and I quote, "We are thrilled for Chris to be named the new head coach of the Dallas Wings. Chris has a unique ability to see the game, break down the game, and then transfer that knowledge to players in clear and relatable ways. He's a true teacher with an ability to connect with people. Chris came to us from the W and immediately brought a new and important element to our staff and players. He's been a huge part of our growth trajectory at USC, and now we're proud and excited to see him lead the Wings." That was what Gottlieb said. That was a statement that Gottlieb put out earlier today in thanking Chris for his time with USC over the past year. So, really excited for him. Now, on to our final team of the day is men's basketball. They got 2 wins this week. Beat CSUN on Wednesday night, 90-69, and beat Southern 82-51 yesterday. I was at both those games. Chibuzo Agbo just went off for the week. He led with 23 points against CSUN. First half was back and forth until Kevin Patton Jr. drained a three at the buzzer to put USC at 40-39. But after that, USC did not look back and just dominated the second half. So Patton's bucket just really helped just spark the Trojans going into the second half. And then Agbo led again with 18 points against Southern. USC dominated all the way through for the most part, so more complete game. And a lot of guys who don't usually get as much playing time to see minutes on the court. And I think the most notable guy who really took advantage of his time was Bryce Pope. He played 16 minutes, drained a three, pulled down 3 rebounds, and had both a block and a steal. And after the game, what they do when they win is they have post-game awards, which is just they get like weird, cool prizes. It's kind of just how they hype each other up. It appears from the video that was put on the USC Instagram. But Pope was made the energy player of the game by Coach Musselman. So I think he definitely deserved that. He played with a lot of energy, a lot of passion, really trying to just show that he wants to get more minutes. So shout out to just all those guys who just kept the pace going in the second half of that game against Southern, just kept the foot on the gas. In general, though, I do think I would like to see Josh Cohen play more. I think he just plays really relentlessly and is tough to fight in the paint. I think he just does a really good job there. So I really would like to see Cohen get some more minutes. But overall, I've just been impressed with how the guys been gelling over the last 4 games. They're on a 4-game winning streak. It seems like Musselman has figured out his starting 5, at least for now, although wouldn't be surprised if it changed. They've done a lot of different starting lineups, but it seems like at least this past week, the lineup they went with was working. So I would definitely expect to see that probably after their break. And that lineup is St. Thomas, Desmond Claude, Wesley Yates III, Chibuzo Agbo, and Josh Cohen. USC is now 9-4, and as I said, they're riding a 4-game win streak. Chibuzo Agbo is named Trojan of the Week. And USC's next game will be against Michigan on January 4th. That'll be on Fox. That is Terrence Williams II's previous school. But until then, the team doesn't have a game for the next 2 weeks. So we'll definitely talk more about that game next week. Before I get to it, actually, one thing I want to circle back to on women's basketball is Juju Watkins was named the Big Ten Player of the Week for her effort against beating the UConn. So just want to bring that back up. just hit my mind as I started talking about men's basketball. So I want to just get through that, then go back to that, just give her a shout out for that because definitely is a big part of why the Trojans beat the Huskies. But overall, how I did last week, I went 2-0 in the games I went to. So they're both men's basketball games. That puts me at 39-12 on the season, 253 and 94 all time. And then I'm 8-2 at men's basketball games this season. My plans for this week are I'm going to go out to Vegas for the Las Vegas Bowl against Texas A&M on Friday night. And then I'll be back in time for the women's basketball game against Michigan on the 29th. And for my records, this year I'm 6-3 at football games and 6-1 at women's basketball games. So that's pretty much all for us this today. Thank you for tuning in. As always, it means the world to me that you all are watching, listening, subscribing, following. So it means a lot to me. So make sure to follow me on social media everywhere at CrashLit. Check out my website, crashlit.com. We'll see you next week for the weekly rundown. But on Thursday, still trying to get all finalized. So still trying to figure out a couple things. So I'm not going to say anything, but I may be doing my first interview of Behind the Caution Tape with a guest. So definitely make sure you tune in. Currently, it's set for Thursday, but still need to finalize it. So I'm not going to talk too much. Once it's finalized, I may put something on social media, but definitely make sure you tune in for the next episode, whether it's next week or sometime later this week for this interview special. But that is all until then. Thank you all for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you all soon. Merry Christmas and fight on.